Welcome to Beyond the Battlefield, Stories of Mountain and Air, the podcast that delves into the diverse and compelling careers of the Vermont National Guard and its members. I'm your host, Sergeant Niels Huisman, Public Affairs Specialist for the Vermont National Guard Joint Force Headquarters. Each episode features a candid conversation with current military personnel in order to shine a light on their personal experiences in and out of uniform. Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind these soldiers and airmen and explore the motivations that drive individuals to pursue a career in the armed forces. Our guest today has been one of the vital members of the Vermont National Guard's flood response team. As a member of the Quick Reaction Force for state emergencies, he has provided critical life-saving maneuvers utilizing high water rescue vehicles and transporting swift water rescue teams and civilians in and out of flood zones. Thank you for being here, Staff Sergeant Niels Huisman.
Thank you, Sergeant Nunez. My pleasure to be here.
Now, you're a member of the 40th Army Band, which also serves as a component of the QRF, or the Quick Reaction Force. What's that like? What's the feeling you receive when you get that call?
I think it kind of depends on the time of day a little bit. Sometimes I'm wiping the sleep out of my eyes when we get the call. It's a bit of a mixed feeling. It's a great feeling and a bit of a sad feeling. When we get the call to do something, it's usually because something bad has happened to the state of Vermont and we're being called to help some people out who are probably having a pretty bad day. So I'm sad that I have to get called up to do something, but at the same time, I'm very grateful and very proud of the fact that I can do something. I can be a part of the solution. I can be a part of the rescue attempt and trying to make things just a little bit better and give back to the state and the community that helped take care of me and get me to where I am.
That's great. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is you and the rest of your team do during these type of state emergencies?
It depends on the type of emergency. The last two that we've responded to were both flooding events. So what will normally happen is we'll get the call, we'll assemble at Camp Johnson or one of the other armories around the area and get all of our equipment together, go out and meet with the local fire departments, swift water teams, the people in our civilian counterparts who are on the ground and really know the area well and are trying to provide response as quick as possible and some relief. We'll meet with them, find out what their needs are, and do our best to fill in. Oftentimes, what we've been doing is providing high water support. We have some very large trucks that can drive through some pretty deep water without too much difficulty, and that can be of great use to fire departments, swift rescue teams, swift water rescue teams, and urban search and rescue. So that's most of what we do. Sometimes we're just helping at the local fire department, just be an extra set of hands to just help get people to where they are, get people to where they're going, get them a hot meal, be a smiling face. As part of the band, one of the fun things that we get to do is we get to play a bit of music. So if we're not immediately going out to provide rescue or life-saving services, a lot of us will bring an instrument with us and we'll just play a little bit of music in the area for the people who might have just lost their home or potentially lost a family member or a pet or something that they're going through a bad time. We try and ease their mind just a little bit.
What is that scene like, do you think? It seems like that would be very uplifting in such a moment of crisis for, a group of people that are there together as a huddled mass and you bring in this music.
It can be. This last flood response, my team was up in Lyndonville, and Sergeant Jason Allen was with us. He brought his guitar with him. And while we weren't going out on missions, we were looking to be useful around the fire department. He brought out his guitar, and I saw a lot of people just open up just a little bit. They're having a bit of a bad day, understandably. And you just see a smile come across their face, and they get to just be happy or not think about the terrible thing that just happened for just a couple minutes. It can really raise spirits. It can ease a bit of suffering. It can help people, help their morale just a little bit and help them find the strength to go through and move on with the unfortunate part of dealing with the loss of a house.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you speak to some of the rescues that you've been a part of? I know last year I was able to tag along with you for some of those rescues. I wasn't there this year. Could you talk about that a little bit and tell us kind of what was happening on the ground during the flooding events?
Absolutely. You were sorely missed, Sergeant Nunez. It was
I'm sorry. I couldn't
sad
be
not to
there.
have you with us. If you remember the things that we did last year, it was very similar. A lot of the rivers and streams had flooded their banks, sometimes pretty severely. There was a lot of runoff coming down from the mountains to lower levels. So we just had anywhere from 2 to 5 feet of water to go through. Various parts of different communities were cut off from main roads. Bridges were out. It was just going through some high water with swiftwater teams and urban search and rescue and checking on the people in the various locations. Are you safe? Are you okay? If the swiftwater teams looked around and said, okay, this is high ground, they have an option whether they would like to stay and ride it out. We feel safe with them staying here, or if they wanted to leave, if they wanted to get out. It was a mixed bag. I'd say about half and half. People were happy to just stay where they were, knowing that we had hit at one point we had hit kind of the highest water levels that we were expecting to see, and that the floodwaters would recede, so they were fine. They didn't have anything to really be concerned about. Their home was fine. Their cars were fine. They were just cut off for the next 12 to 16 hours. And sometimes people were saying, get me out of here. I'm not convinced that the floodwaters won't rise higher. I need to get out, or I have a medical condition. I need to be able to get to a doctor in case something bad happens. A team that I was overseeing but was not with them at the time, where there was a car pinned up against a tree with a civilian inside, and we were able to get one of our large vehicles out to that, close enough to that vehicle where the swiftwater teams could take over and actually rescue the individual that was trapped in that car. So that was kind of cool. I unfortunately was not a part of that, but the people I was working with were. Those are the moments where it's like, yeah, we didn't just check on people, we saved a life. Not to say that we didn't in those other situations, but it's a very tangible, this person might have died if we had not taken care of them.
That's pretty incredible. And I know last year it was something like 20 plus people were rescued. Do you know what the numbers were looking like this year? I had read 19, perhaps, something in that ballpark.
I believe General Knight put out that statement. I think that was it's not General Knight. A local flood response team or the state of Vermont put out something like that. I know that my team up in Lyndonville, we were based in Lyndonville, but we kind of took care of the whole Northeast Kingdom. There were people in St. Johnsbury and Peacham and Barnet and all over the kingdom. I think we did 50 to 60 missions, and I think we specifically rescued about 10 people that were in danger of needing serious rescue and brought in just from these cutoff areas that I mentioned earlier, probably another 30 or 40.
Wow, incredible. Can't thank you enough for what you've done out there, what the emergency management service is doing out there, and the swiftwater rescue teams that came from out of state last year and this year to assist Vermont in such a dire time. Lastly, on the flooding, I'd like to ask, since you were there 2 years in a row, and we're seeing this kind of perpetual happening, can you tell me what you've seen as a difference from 2023 on to 2024? Has there been any stark differences? Is it kind of more of the same that you've noticed, or is anything that is of note?
Well, each natural disaster, each emergency is a little bit different. And as you know, last year we were in Cambridge and Jeffersonville for a good part of it. My team was, at least. This year I was up in the Northeast Kingdom, so there are going to be those geographical differences. But in terms of the flooding, I mean, a flooded river is a flooded river. They tend to have very similar behaviors. We had some deep water. We had roads being washed out, bridge abutments being washed out. There were definitely a couple points where we got to a section of road and we stopped, looked around, and realized there is no soil underneath this asphalt, which was a very similar thing to last year, just different areas of being washed out. This year, I think the response was a little bit better. We learned a lot of lessons from last year. We were a little bit more proactive, and we were able to get people to where they needed to be a little bit quicker. So it was an improvement of last year. Not to say that we did things badly last year. We did the best we could, and I think we did an excellent job. But it was nice to see that with every situation, there are lessons to be learned. We learned them, and we implemented some solutions to try and head certain problems off before they became problems. But just as last year, communities getting together, everybody pitching in to help out. The local fire departments were excellent hosts to us this year as they were last year. It was unfortunate that it had to be a disaster, but it's always heartwarming to see communities get together, take care of each other, and let us into their community for a little while to help out.
And I'm sure that the people that you've helped I've been greatly appreciative of your efforts. And I know from what I saw, so many people had been reaching out saying thank you for you and your services and for the rest of the QRF team and folks that were out there. So, again, thank you so much for that. I'd like to kind of switch gears a little bit here because, I don't want to end everything on such a stark and dire note. I'd like to come back to maybe your musical career a little bit more.
Sure.
And see if maybe you'd talk me through your journey. Talk to me about what it is that you went through to become a member of the band, and just kind of the steps that it took to get there.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me just say I love my job. I love what I do as a bandsman. It's also very rewarding to be part of the quick reaction force. But my day-to-day job as a bandsman, what a great way to serve my country and my state to play music. I joined a little bit later than a lot of people joined the military. I was 21. I got out of high school, kind of floated around, didn't really have a lot of direction, and decided I needed to get some direction, get a bit of discipline, and looked around, talked to a couple recruiters, and found my recruiter at the time, Staff Sergeant Chris Cover. Shout out Chief Warrant Officer 3 Chris Cover. I know you're still around. Thank you for getting me in. We talked for a little while. He found out that I played music and said, "Hey, do you know we have a band here?" I said, "No. That's awesome. I'd love to meet them." And like most bands, like most musical organizations, there's an audition process. You generally will go meet them and hang out with them for a little while, which is what I did. I spent a drill weekend working with the band and just meeting everybody, seeing who they were, seeing what kind of music they played, and if I could be a positive addition to the group. It took one drill weekend, and I said, this is great. I'd love to work with these guys. I want to play with them. I could see myself doing some really cool stuff here. I took an audition about a month later, and Chief David Myers, the commander of the band at the time, said, "You're great, we'll have you in," signed the papers, and off I went to basic training. That's been about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. They kept putting re-enlistment paperwork in front of me, and I kept saying, yeah, no, I could keep doing this. This is great.
Keep it going. Just keep it going.
This is awesome.
Awesome.
It's great. I get to play music. I get to go to different parts of the state, play for different civilians. I get to support military activities. There's a national competition happening here in Vermont pretty soon, and there will be an awards banquet, and I get to go and play for the awards banquet for this military competition for change of command ceremonies, change of responsibility, ship commissionings. It's great. It's such a cool job to have in the military and in the National Guard. I get to do so many cool things. Very, very rewarding career.
That's amazing. Is there anything you'd like to share with the people? Maybe a really memorable experience or a favorite gig of some type that you've done?
Oh, man. There are so many cool gigs that I've done. So many cool gigs. I'd have to say the most recent high-profile gig I did was probably one of the coolest in my 20-year career. So Vermont has a state partnership with the Republic of Austria, which we got, I think, about 2 years ago. The Austrians found out that Vermont has a band, and we played for them at kind of a welcome event for them, and where General Knight and a bunch of delegates from Austria had dinner, and we played a dining in. This is a pretty common thing for us to do. We provide some musical background. And they said, "Man, your band's really good. We've got this officers' ball that we have every year in Vienna. We would love to have the 40th Army Band be a guest artist for this event." We said, "Of course, absolutely. Go to Austria and represent Vermont and the United States at the officers' ball." We didn't realize how big an event this was until we got there. This was at the Hofburg Palace, which is the main palace in Vienna. It's it's the seat of government for the entire country. And I don't know any way to describe it other than it was a Disney princess ball. think of the most lavish ending credits Disney princess movie you've seen. That's what we did. It was incredible. Uniformed service members of all branches for the U.S. and for Austria. Beautiful ballroom dancers, multiple ballrooms. It was absolutely incredible. We sent our rock band over. I'm the bass player for the rock band. By the end of the night, it was standing room only in our ballroom. We were pulling people from all over the event, and they loved us. They kept asking for more. We were done at 4 a.m., and they said, one more song. Like, we're tired, but okay, we'll do one more. It was great. It was an absolutely incredible experience. And hey, Austria, I'd love to come back.
That's amazing. And you guys were the guest of honor, correct?
We were the guests of honor. It was to celebrate the recent state partnership program, and we got to be the musical guests of honor for the entire event. It was absolutely incredible.
That's amazing. So, Sergeant, I'd like to ask you, is there any advice, anything you'd like to share or give anyone that is thinking about joining A, maybe the band, or B, the National Guard, the Vermont National Guard, just anything that you think would set them up for success?
This is one of the best organizations I've worked for in my life. I'm 41 years old. I've done a ton of jobs. I've done a ton of different things in my life. The Vermont National Guard is one of the greatest organizations I've worked for. Reach out to a local recruiter. Reach out to anybody that you know who is in the Vermont National Guard, Air, Army, doesn't matter. Reach out, talk to them. They're going to tell you the same thing. A lot of times we can bring you in to meet people and just kind of see some things that you might be interested in. Whatever your interests are, I'm sure there's something in the Vermont National Guard that will align with them, whether you like to do wheeled vehicle repair, whether you want to fly planes, whether you want to join the band, the best unit in the Vermont National Guard. Come talk to us. We'd love to talk to you. We're not scary. I know we put on the uniform and we can look intimidating at times. Some of the friendliest people I've ever met, some of my best friends that I'm gonna know and be friends with past the time I retire and past the time they retire. It's a great organization. Come say hi. Come talk to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Sergeant, thank you so much for being here. It's fantastic to have you on and hear these incredible stories. And again, I think I can speak for every Vermonter and say thank you for what you've done the last 2 years in aiding during a time of crisis here in our state. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all the communities for letting us in for a little while.
So everyone, thank you for tuning in again and joining us today on the Beyond the Battlefield Stories of Mountain and Air podcast. I'm Sergeant Dennis Nunez. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep ascending.